Hey everybody, welcome back. Proverbs 25:15 through 28. I am glad that you are here. If you've got any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below. And if you would like or share this out, I would appreciate that. And if you want to get a notification, I've not mentioned this lately, but if you want to get a notification anytime this is posted to YouTube, and my current process is that I basically post them to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So if you want to get a notification when it hits over on YouTube, just subscribe there and you will achieve that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started with verse 15. Like we talked about yesterday, this is kind of a new section of Proverbs up until this chapter. Up through chapter 24 was a letter specifically from Solomon to his sons. And then in 25, it seems like someone else picked up and kind of not finished it out for him, but added on to his letter and just took some of his wisdom and added that on here at the end. So it's got a little bit of a different flow. This section we're doing today kind of flows like the last section we were in, where it just kind of has a statement and then a counter, a statement and then a counter, or some clarification. But you'll see that. So let's go ahead and get started. Verse 15, with patience a ruler may be persuaded, with a soft tongue will break a bone. And a soft tongue will break a bone. So this just points out, if you're dealing with a ruler or someone in authority that is not easily persuaded, that a soft tongue will break a bone if you have some patience. So my takeaway from that is just patience and persistence, but never getting, always keeping a soft tongue, always being respectful and gentle as possible, and that eventually you'll kind of wear them down. Verse 16, if you found honey, eat only enough for you, lest you have your fill of it and vomit. So too much of a good thing can be not a good thing. I think this applies in health. If you attain some sweets or candy or whatever, to only have enough for you and not to overdo it. This could be true in a lot of things. If you have something that's good, be careful that it is not that you don't get too much of it, so that it's no longer a blessing. Verse 17, let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you. I actually kind of compared this one to the one before it. So having neighbors that welcome you over and you have meals together and you have a good time together is great. But again, too much of a good thing is a good thing, or is not a good thing. And so just be judicious about how much time you spend in other people's houses, or just in general with other people, so that a friendship is not becoming a burden to either of you, and that you are continuing to be a blessing, and as Christians, that you're continuing to build each other up, and it's not becoming a contentious relationship. Verse 18, a man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a war club, a sword, or a sharp arrow. So lies do damage. False witness, we know, is telling something that's not true, being a witness that's false, not true. And so, I don't think there's any truth to the, little white lie that doesn't do any damage. I think all untruths do some type of damage. And so we need to be careful to be extremely honest, even when it's not easy. Verse 19, trusting in a treacherous man in a time of trouble is like a bad tooth or a foot that slips. So putting your trust in someone who's not trustworthy, especially in a time of trouble, in a time where you may need their trustworthiness, or you may need their ability to keep something private, or whatever the case may be, is like a toothache or a foot that slips and assumedly you'd fall or hit your shin or have some type of pain with both of those. So just be careful who you trust, especially in times of trouble, and not to trust a treacherous man. Verse 20, whoever sings a song to a heavy heart is like one who takes off a garment on a cold day, and like vinegar on soda. So I think the takeaway from this one is to mourn with those who mourn. Telling someone to cheer up or telling someone that they shouldn't be sad anymore is not going to help them not be sad anymore. Just being sad with them may be the best thing, but being overly joyful and singing songs and, trying to cheer them up that way is not always the best plan. Verse 21, if your enemy is hungry, give him bread to drink. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Verse 22, for you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. So if this were updated for today, it would be, if your enemy is hungry, do not blast him on Facebook. If he is thirsty, do not share memes about him on Instagram. Basically, be overly kind and overly generous in spite of the fact that of the way people treat you or groups treat you. And so, don't return evil for evil. And in fact, return good for evil, so that so that they'll notice that you're different, because the typical response to some type of hate or contentious words is to return those words and to return that hate. But if we set ourselves apart as Christians and say, no, I'm not going to engage with you in that way. I'm going to love on you anyway. I'm going to give you, what I have to give. I'm going to give you, I'm going to continue to be good to you. I'm going to continue to love you in spite of the fact that we have this tension or we have this problem. And this will be more encouraging to them, like burning coals on their head. But this will be more beneficial in your argument in the long run, and that you don't take the typical path of our current internet arguments. Verse 23, the north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue angry looks. I'm not sure the geography of the area we're talking about. I'm sure someone else could have looked that up and had a better word to say here. But just from reading it, it seems that normally when the north wind blew, it meant that there was rain coming up from a sea or a river or a lake or whatever. But when the wind was blowing north, it was almost a guarantee that there was rain coming. And then compared to that is a backbiting tongue. And I looked up some of the other translations of that word backbiting is a secretive or hidden, covert, slanderous, I think was the most obvious translation there. So a slanderous tongue will bring angry looks. A lying tongue, a slanderous tongue is eventually going to be found out, and people are going to get angry when they find that out. But even just to be, when I hear backbiting, I think like two-faced. So anytime you're two-faced and you're trying to play one party against another, that's going to create angry looks, and it's not going to help you in the long run. Verse 24, it's better to live in the corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. So the good news is that the housetops in this day were at least flat. So it's not like they were perching on the corner of a slanted roof waiting to fall off as soon as they fell asleep. Although depending on how quarrelsome the wife is, it may be just as dangerous, but in any case, and we've talked about this before, there's two ways, I think, to deal with a quarrelsome wife. The first and best, if you can catch it in time, is not to marry her. But if you are currently married, I don't think this is encouraging you to seek a divorce or seek, some type of, retribution in that way, but simply to make sure your wife is happy, as we've talked about a couple of times, and I think Proverbs corroborates this: is happy wife, happy life. If your goal as a husband or a wife is to make sure that your spouse is happy and that they have what they need and that they are supported, then this quarrelsome thing will be at least less of an issue, if not an issue at all. So trying to figure out how to have a healthy marriage relationship and how to benefit your spouse and how to serve your spouse is beneficial to you in the long run. But we don't seek that benefit to start with. Verse 25, like cold water to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. In these days, like we talked about yesterday, there were messengers that would carry messages over long distances. So good news from a far country was, refreshing, like cold water to a thirsty soul. And even today, if you think about, even currently the flood victims in Texas, as their families saw that hurricane come in and they knew that their family members were in the path of that, I'm sure hearing from them after it was over, or as it was progressing, and knowing that they were safe and knowing that they'd gotten to a safe location, or there wasn't flooding in their area or whatever, and even with the wildfires, the people that are in the path of those, when their family hears that they're safe and they're out and everything's okay, that's like a cold water to a thirsty soul. Verse 26, in contrast to cold water, is like a muddied spring or a polluted fountain, is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked. In these days they didn't have the water treatment facilities that we have now. So if a spring got poisoned or tainted or polluted, basically they had to go find another water source. And so like a muddied spring or a polluted fountain is a righteous man who gives way before the wicked. And I looked up some other translations of the verse, and it talks about a righteous man falling before the wicked, or basically caving to wicked ways. And so as we seek righteousness, as we seek wisdom, Satan's going to continue to attack, and is going to continue to try to pollute the good fountain that's coming from us. As we talked about, somebody of wisdom is going to share that wisdom, is going to be a fountain of life and of happiness and of wisdom. And so Satan is going to constantly be trying to pollute that, to add things that aren't beneficial, and to muddy that spring or pollute that fountain. So we need to be careful and protective of that. We'll talk about that here in a couple verses. But before we get there, we'll do 27. It is not good to eat much honey, nor is it glorious to seek one's own glory. So we talked about earlier how, too much honey is a bad thing. So is seeking your own glory. So I think the tendency is, once you receive some glory from some recognition for something, the goal will turn to become to seek your own glory. And this is warning against that, and that, glory may be good when it's brought to you, but it is not good when you go to seek it. And so our goal, even in our professional lives, in our personal lives, in our church lives, and our, whatever the case may be, is not to seek glory, but simply to serve And if we receive some glory for that, that may be a good thing, but too much of it is not a good thing. So it's not something that we should seek. And then verse 28, a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. So a man that's not able to control himself, and this could be applied to anything. It could be, a man or woman that's not able to control their tongue. It's not able to control their cash flow. It's not able to control their, their family life, or whatever is out of control, whatever they're not able to control within themselves. It's like a city that's broken into and left without walls. So when marauders or thieves or bandits would come into a city and plunder, it was one thing for them to come in and take things because things can be replaced. It was another insult added to injury when they actually damaged the protection of that city, the walls of that city in the process, because the people of the city would either have to repair the protection to keep the next set of bandits or thieves out, or they would leave it open and leave themselves open to that attack again. And so we need to, I think this is saying we need to set up protection within our own lives. Put up walls and make sure, like we've talked about before, put up guardrails, as Andy Stanley preaches about. Put up guardrails that keep us out of trouble and keep trouble out, and that we don't have, that our self-control is protected by that, and that we're able to win those battles because we have protections in place. But anyway, that's all I've got for Proverbs 25. We will pick up with Proverbs 26 tomorrow. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for checking these out, and have a great day.